right. Thank you, Dinah, for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Robert Wagner. I hope you guys can hear me well. So yeah, I'm product manager here at UiPath, dealing mainly with third-party integrations, such as an integration with Atlassian and Jira. And I'm very happy to be here today and present this to you guys. I have a quick agenda for you that you understand what you guys can expect from today. So first of all, I will have more a general perspective on why you should care about integration, not only from a company perspective, also maybe if you start one day your own business, this is really something I think that's worth sharing with you guys. Before we go into what we provide, what kind of integrations we provide for Jira, what is available, and also what's coming next. And then we will be talking about use cases. Of course, that's a very important thing to understand what we can automate. And then I will show you some examples from our UiPath Center of Excellence, how these guys are doing. And I also will be able to share some stats with you because very often people are asking how we're doing it. And yeah, and I'm happy to share this. After this first block, which is more theoretical, I'm going to do the first two quiz questions. So please pay attention to what I'm saying. So you'll potentially win some swag. And then I'll really do some deep dive demo and use cases based on the CoE examples I presented in the first block. So this should last about 20 minutes. And then we have the second part of our quiz, and we're going to announce a winner. And then we'll go into the Q&A session, and I'm really happy to have Ian with me today. So in case you have specific questions about the Atlassian or Jira, then he might be able to help here. Yeah, and in the end, some next event promotion. And I think in about 60 minutes, we should be done here. Depends, plus, minus 10 minutes probably. All right, so let's get this started. So why should you care about integration in general? First of all, I would like to speak a little bit about the so-called Medici effect. The Medici effect is something described by a Swedish-American author. His name is Franz Johansson, and he published in 2004 a very successful book where he takes the Medici family, which has been a very wealthy dynasty in Italy, in Florence. And what they did is, with all their wealth, they funded a lot of artists like, Leonardo da Vinci and people like that, right? Very, very, very talented artists. And the point of this, what he describes in this book is when experts of totally two different disciplines work together, this results into innovation. And in this case, he takes this example to describe how actually the Renaissance happened. And the Medici didn't do this on intent, right, that to go into Renaissance, but that was just a result of this combination of these two different disciplines. And I would like also take this as an example for how to drive innovation in the IT industry, in our business, where we are. For instance, if you have on the one side business automation, and if you can connect it with other systems, this is something where innovation gets triggered. Not always on intent, but just this is, for instance, when you connect like UiPath, business automation with business intelligence, it's like you will end up with automated business intelligence, for instance, right? So this is really something where, what I believe we should understand, that there's could be always something bigger when we connect two worlds with each other. So why integration? Because very often when you ask customers, they are asking for a best of suite. And as we all know, there is hardly any company out there who can serve a large enterprise with everything. So what we're typically doing is we can connect the best the best of breed in order to get a best of suite. And already Aristotle said something similar to this. The whole thing is greater than just the sum of its parts. And he said it already 2,300 years ago. And this is very true if you look at this, also with the example of the Medici effect. So when you stitch two things together, the outcome is usually bigger than just the sum of its parts. And we are in a great position right now because with the rise of modern APIs, with standardization, with tooling support, and so on and so forth, it is feasible and applicable to do that. There's somebody not on mute, Dinah. I think, can you please mute yourself, everyone, please? That would be great. Thank you. 1 second. All right. Okay, good. So APIs made a significant progress, right? So like 50 years ago, there were already APIs like things like in mainframe where you could connect systems, but it was super complex and hard to connect to each other, right? And now with all this Swagger and with RESTful APIs, etc., this is something really can be rather easy nowadays compared to the past. And we are just taking this opportunity, of course, to connect our platform with the Jira platform, for instance, like in this example. We're doing this for all different kind of systems, but we call that here an activity pack when we enable a robot, for instance, to create artifacts, for instance, in Jira. So that's what we call an activity pack. And this is typically what you design in UiPath Studio and teach your robot to do things in Jira, etc. The other way of the integration is typically what we call a connector. And this is what we're currently planning to do, that we enable a connector that is capable to reach out from Jira and, for instance, running a process in UiPath. So that's currently the plan. We have this for other systems available already. And I just wanted to give you an update that we've decided to go for such an integration. All right, so that's allows, of course, quite a lot of use cases. And right now we have 3 different types of integration packages, of activity packages we have as of now. Of course, the one is our official activity pack, which is available in our official package feed in Studio. But of course, we also have a lot of stuff on our marketplace. And that's actually a good story. The original Jira integration started on the marketplace, but then we realized there is so many people using it, and we decided to go for an official supported version. And that's the official activity pack we have right now. And on the very right, we have our newly introduced integration service, where you will also find these packages in our Studio in the official feed. And unfortunately, I cannot fully demo it in this session today, but stay tuned. This is something which most likely will be released in our November release already, but the devs promised to me that's definitely going to be launched and available in December. So check out our integration service if you haven't seen it. It's available in our automation platform. And as some of you have probably heard, that we did an acquisition recently of Cloud Elements. And the integration service is exactly the result where we integrated Cloud Elements into our platform. And this will allow us to connect to many, many systems for integration. And, the reason why we're doing that, supporting so many integrations, is on the one side that we enable a lot more process automation API level, but of course that combines very well with user interfaces, right? User interfaces are still very relevant for RPA because very often you have systems where there is no API available or where there is just no other option than doing this via the interface. But with our UiPath automation capabilities, we enable you to do a process automation all across different technologies, also UIs, APIs, and so on and so forth. So this is how we maximize the automation benefits for robots by doing all that. Of course, there is advantages and disadvantages in both. While on the user interfaces, you can really emulate the real user, but typically there's a lot of bigger tech stack involved compared to the API layer, which is actually to build more technical, but it scales a lot better. It runs faster. It is, for instance, if you have a high volume transaction to do, of course, that's a lot faster with an API because it doesn't take like minutes if you would do it on a UI, but it takes just seconds on an API. And this, of course, complements also existing enterprise IT strategies where a lot of these integrations are supposed to run on API layers. So it is really good we have that because a typical business process spans all across the enterprise. You have all these silos where you have customer experience, finance, supply chain, HR, IT ops, where processes typically start on the very left and go on to the far right. And just to give you one example, if you have like a sales force where like an opportunity gets closed and it does something in Dynamics and it creates in Workday until it does some ITSM related stuff in Jira, for instance. And this can be all implemented within one process. And that's really required if you want to do comprehensive process automation where you can get the most out of these automated processes, because then you don't need any manual or human interaction anymore about that. And the use cases, the list of use cases is rather like endless, right? Depending on what you identify, for instance, as the most valuable. It's not like I can throw these use cases and say, this is what you can, that's all you can automate, right? This is just some examples, because it always, when you start an automation project, you always should think about the low-hanging fruit first, which is something which can, from a technical perspective or from a knowledge perspective, or where the ROI, for instance, gets met the easiest, for instance. So there is a lot of metrics you should consider when going for an automation project. And we have like courses in our academy if you haven't seen them yet, or if you go with a partner, for instance, of course these guys can help a lot to do that. And but it always depends what you can automate, and the list is actually almost endless. As you guys all know, digital transformation has been a buzz for a while now. And at the beginning, like when I started like 15 years ago or like 10 years ago, when all these came up with digital transformation, no one really knew what to do exactly here, or then some people realized it earlier, others later. But I think it's been pretty clear what this is about, especially since COVID hit us all. There's a lot more remote work to do, and there's a lot more demand for automating processes, right? Just we got some stats from Gartner or other surveys that the budget is still growing, and there is still a high priority for IT leaders to do that. And just with the whole remote work, there's like a 37% increase of overall IT workload, right? And I know what I'm talking about because I'm full-time remote, and the most of the stuff here at UiPath can be done completely autonomous meanwhile. And not just that the workload can be automated, it also helps to avoid security issues, because that's all standardized and reviewed processes done by systems. And yeah, that's just something where you can also reduce error rates and security leaks, etc. So it's not only that you reduce workload. So as already mentioned, I'm gonna bring some example of our UiPath Center of Excellence. And so I had a couple of interviews with some guys of our internal CoE, and I thought it makes a lot of sense just to speak a little bit about that, how we're set up from this perspective, especially for the newcomers in RPA. They don't really know how to set it up. And for in our example, we have like 5 business analysts who really go to the business experts and talk with them and fully understand what is really required from a business context. And of course, they work very closely with solution architects and RPA developers. And a solution architect then gives some guidance how this could be set up until the RP developers then really put hands on and implement the automations and also operate and run the entire environment. We have like one project manager who takes care about everything. And of course, we also have 3 support engineers because, sometimes things don't work, but it's very rare, but it can happen. And it's always good to have somebody who can help out with incidents, for instance. So like we at UiPath, we have a lot of these chatbots integrated in our communication platforms. And this is really very, very, very obvious in our company, of course. Right now, we have 194 processes, unattended processes in production. Of course, the team built a lot more in the past, but this is the ones who are currently running. And 112 of them are attended, meaning every UiPath employee can just make use of these attended ones. And so we have like 77 machines running where unattended robots are processing things on a regular schedule, but also in some situations, these get triggered by robots, or we even have some integrations with UiPath apps and other platforms, but I'm going to show you an example with UiPath apps, how you can trigger an unattended robot, for instance, from a web UI, for instance. But of course, for each and every UiPath employee, we have an attended robot. So it's more than 2,000, and they can pick one of these attended robots, for instance, to do expenses or stuff like that. And this, of course, results in some cost reductions, right? And year to date, we have like 230,000 plus hours saved this year only with our automations. We have metrics and dashboards where we can measure all that. And since we started in 2019 with the CoE, of course, first it was smaller, then it grew. That's also an advice. Start small and then grow it, right? When you have the most low-hanging fruits done, then you can explore more and then grow that. But meanwhile, we have a cost reduction of almost 500,000 hours. So that's quite a lot. And I would like to highlight one of these use cases because it's Jira related, where we have using this with sales technology and Jira ticket assignment, where, for instance, a robot automatically assigns Jira tickets to people, right? Based on what's inside of these tickets. And this helps us, and this works completely autonomous. Nobody needs to trigger it. Like once a day, this gets processed, and nobody needs to do that manually anymore to assign this. And that saves us about 5,000 hours a year. And that's, of course, one of the high value processes we have, where it was rather simple to implement, but it's a really, really big win for our company. And with all these things going on out there with with climate and stuff like that, I think it's also an important thing that you not only save budget and make things more efficient from a cost perspective, but it also helps to reduce computing costs, right? So typically, the cloud computing costs were significantly reduced, for instance, in our IT ops team, and so on and so forth, besides all the other nice, fancy things I explained to you guys. So that is also a green component. So let's have a look in the use cases I got from my Center of Excellence team. Of course, we are also using Jira here, and we are using Jira Agile. And that's also our Center of Excellence is doing Agile. And this example is one of our CoE members, which is typically the business analyst or the project manager. They typically don't work in Jira, but the rest of the team does, right? So they are not really familiar with Jira. They are not working on a daily basis with it. So they maybe once in a month or something, or twice in a month they need that. And they don't even really see what they are doing. And I will give you a demo about this like in my demo block. But the story goes like this. Emma is convinced about an automation which has been submitted by our automation hub. So what she does, she goes to UiPath apps. So the app the CoE team built for her, and she just types in all the relevant information for this automation project. So when she hits the create button, um, there is the robot more or less connects to SharePoint, where there is an Excel sheet where the robot gets out the basic project structure from this Excel sheet. Before, in the next step, the robot connects to Jira and creates the project structure in Jira itself, epics or whatever you want to do. This can be freely designed, right? Not only epics, could also be Jira projects whatsoever. Before, in the third step, all these work items get attached to this epic, meaning all user stories which typically have to then be done for such a project are generated automatically. Before it goes and creates links for Atlassian, and because many of our people here in our company have access to Confluence, but not Jira, so we generate these Confluence links for them so they always can see what's the status about this project. And once they're done, and by the way, it is a matter of seconds, then Emma can more or less review and approve the summary, and then the automation project is ready to start. So after that, the team would have then their refinement sessions, they have the project, they assign people to these tasks, and so on and so forth. But this really is a good example for a seamless integration with the automation platform, with another system like SharePoint and Atlassian. And that's really a use case oriented automation. And this can be exposed as with a user interface and offered as a service to a business user who don't really understand what's going on in the background, of course. And by using native integrations here, as already mentioned, we could do probably the whole thing also via UI, but by using native integrations where we only use the APIs, this is a matter of seconds. So that's the very first use case I wanted to show you guys, and my demo will be focused around this in a couple of minutes. And of course, it doesn't necessarily need to be that complicated. It could be even easier. And because in this app, there is also a form implemented where Emma, for instance, needs to answer or give a quick feedback on a stakeholder about the ticket. And as already mentioned, she's not really familiar with Jira. She's not using it on a daily basis, but this UI more or less can help her to get out this information real quick. And of course, this could look like also with additional sources. Sometimes these users need to access 5 different applications to get all the information out there, right? And this can be also used in such a use case where you more or less collect data from all different systems, and then you expose it in one UI to the end user. But that's all seamlessly integrated, and I think that's pretty nice use cases. And I'll show you the processes, the UI, and also the output of that. But before I'm going to do that, it is quiz time. So guys, I would like to ask you if you can just take your mobile, and we'll give you a couple minutes to do that, where you just type in menti.com and enter this ID here, and then you should land in my quiz here. Let me just move this over here. I can see people joining already. So just type in menti.com. It works also in your browser here. Not necessarily to use the mobile phone. The code is 95040375. Oh, great, people joining. So I want to have at least 20 people here. So guys, come on, just sign in. By the way, you can win some swag, maybe some nice socks, or I don't know what stuff we have right now in our swag store, but the winner will get some nice swag. All right. Yeah, some more people joining. Come on, guys. Some people still dropping off. I hope it's not because bad connectivity. Oh yeah, 15 people. Oh yeah, very nice. I like that logo. All right, I would say we're going to start it. Okay, so for the ones who never did that, it's just like speed count, right? So if you know the answer, the faster you are, the more points you will get. All right, so there was just one guy just dropped off, one person just dropped off, so let me wait. All right, I'll hit the button now. So let's start it. Okay, answer first to get more points. All right, according to the book, The Medici Effect, where is innovation happening? Is it at the intersection of disciplines? Is it in Italy or is it at home? Remind that's the according to the book, The Medici Effect. Fantastic. Of course, there's a lot of innovation happening at home, but that's not what is described in the Medici Effect. But perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of innovation in Italy and at home, of course, but not according to the book. All right, next question. Question number 2. I'll start the countdown now. What's the newest UiPath product for integrations? Is it the UiPath Studio? Is it the integration service? Or is it the UiPath Orchestrator? So what's the newest UiPath product? Hands up. Fantastic. The integration service. We have the orchestrator for a while now, so maybe somebody just clicked it wrong, but it's definitely not the studio. Well done, guys. And we have some intermediate scoreboard. All right. So looks like Chandu is ahead. You were the fastest, but you guys are not too far away from each other. So there is still a big chance that others can catch up. So also maybe even people not showing up, but please go also for the second questions. Many times we have people catching up real fast in the second round. All right, it's demo time. And as already mentioned, I'm going to show this use case first. Well, no, let me start with this one first. How do we connect to Jira? And therefore, I will give you a simple example. This is our UiPath Studio, if you haven't seen it so far. And in the UiPath Studio, in the ribbon up here, there's the Manage Package, the Package Explorer. And this is where you can find the package, like the UiPath Jira activities. And once you install them, you will find them here in the integration. And it will show you what kind of actions you can do in Jira. And I prepared this example for you to give you just a sneak preview how this has to be done. First of all, you would just drag and drop this scope here. That's what I've done here. And then I just get issue, for instance, I use this here, the get issue activity, right? I'm going to remove that because I configured this up front. And the first thing is what we need to do is we need to enable our product to access Jira. And therefore, you need to go into the Jira platform. When you go in account settings, and if you go to security, you can create and you can click this, create and manage API tokens. And you can see here, I created already a couple, but when you create API token, and I just called it demo 123, I will get a token here. And this is exactly the token I will be using in Studio. So I could put the token directly in here, but for security reason, and I don't and typically when you configure that, it is a good idea to put these access tokens and things like that on the orchestrator as an asset, and that's what I'm doing here, right? So I put this token as an asset to our orchestrator, so when I run it, I get it during runtime. That's the beauty. When I have to change it, it will be changed for all the others as well. So it's a single point of maintenance here for the security token. And then this will be used in our Jira scope here, where we authenticate, and then we will query this Jira issue, and I'm just gonna execute it now. So the first thing, it gets the token, then it authenticates, and when I step into this, I can see here in the issue, in the response, that this is the response I'm getting for this issue. So there is all the information in there, and I need to say that Atlassian is doing a really good job with their APIs to really know what developer experience means. So from there, you can read out the information you need and hand it over, for instance, to the next step. So that doesn't sound too complicated, but sometimes, you know, the get started is a bit tricky. And so I thought it makes sense to show that to you. In the future, this will look a little bit different. And so I would love to show you, before I go to in the others, I will show you our integration service. And therefore, I'm just going to our staging environment. Of course, you will find it also in the production environment. And we switch to English. So the integration service, you find it here. You can enable it in the admin here for you can activate it for your tenant in the admin panel here. And what the integration service more or less is, it helps you to connect to all different kind of systems. So this is what we have right now. And as already mentioned, this integration support for apps will continue grow a lot faster because we are initially launched it now, and we have our very first integrations. And this is something where we will monthly add new ones, as the Jira, which is currently in staging, but is already mentioned in November. It probably is going to be there already. And the way it's going to work is like you click on this, then you add a connection here, and then when you go, then you will be redirected, you enter your site URL, and then you would authenticate. As already mentioned, it's not working completely yet, so I can't really demo it, but when you click connect, you would enter your username and password, and then you have your connection created, and you would be able to use it in Studio then without the need to configure the API token, as I did just in my demo before. And you can do everything, the whole integration and connection management in here. So that's also a single point of maintenance here. If something breaks with the connection, you update it here, and it's fixed for all the robots who are using the connection. All right, that's about the integration service. Maybe worth mentioning, there is also, you know, most recent community sessions, Brandon Brown did a very nice session on the integration service itself. So if you want to learn more about this, there you will also see how it really works in action. Then just check out this community session. But now let's go to what I wanted to show here. And so let's go back. The first use case I wanted to show is this one, like the automation project submission in the HL environment. And therefore, I said I'm going to make use of apps. You know, UiPath apps is an approach where you can attach a web user interface on top of a process like this one. I'll show you the process also in a second, but when you click on this, it loads the web UI. And this is crafted in UiPath apps, meaning you can build any kind of web UI, which then hand over data to a process. So, and this is for the first use case where you can create a new project. The user would just enter process name and everything relevant in here. There's also an option for doing a change request. And I promised the COE guy that I'm not going to execute this in my demo. And because I would create a lot of artifacts. But when I do, I would get like a project structure like this, right? So it creates in Jira an epic, and that's how the robot is doing. It creates the epic, takes over the data from the input form. It also creates the work items, the user stories, and attaches it to the epic. But it also generates like links, which then will be linked in Confluence for users and stakeholders who don't want to go always or cannot go into the Jira HR environment and just see the status of the project, for instance. So that's all created automatically. And if you would do that manually, it takes like, it depends how quick you are, like 30 to 60 minutes. And this is like a matter of seconds if you do that with the process. And here is the process itself. And by the way, I also got the allowance to share these processes with you guys. So I'm going to upload this as part of our community event. So where you will find the slides, you will also find these processes. So if you need some inspiration, then you can get it from these processes. But you will not be able, of course, to execute them because, of course, the API keys and environment variables will not be one. But I think it's a good example and a source how you can build them. But let me quickly dive into this. First of all, it's always good to have logging because to understand what's going on. And the very first thing we do here is, when you can also run this via assistant. So we have like an if and else here, where if you run it in assistant, for instance, then you will have to do some manual inputs, which is not required if you do it with apps, because all these input information is entered, of course, via UiPath apps, right? It's the web UI. So I have an if and else here. Before we move on to the next step, where we collect all the assets. And again, this is from assets from our orchestrator. You could hard code this in here as well. You could also put it directly into Studio, but it's best practice is to have this as assets. For instance, to have this as a single point of maintenance. If you have to update something like this, then you do it there and all the robots will be updated versus doing all this in all the robots, right? And of course, also credentials and things are a lot better protected there than just having it there here. So once it's done, we lock this, and then we close this. Then we go and reading the input file. This is where we connect to Office 365. So we have the scope here. We connect to our Office 365 platform where we have Excel sheets, which more or less describe the basic structure of our project. And we read all the relevant information out there, depending if it's a new process or a change request. And that's some preparation before we go into the Jira project creation itself. That is what's happening here. We have here again an if it's a new process, for instance, versus a change request. And if it's a new process, we do some preparation here with assignments. Then here it goes where we really create the epics, where we give it the names, we take over all kind of links we need, from the input form we processed previously. And then when we're done with that, we log that. So this is where we create the epics before we go in the next step where we create the user stories, right? For each story in the Jira issue, we're going to link this to the project, and so on and so forth. I can't really dive into all the details here, but I think once you understood what is going on, then I think it should help you in case you want to build something on your own. All right, that's for the project. Well, one thing I missed, this is something here where we add these Confluence pages, right? This is the final step where we create all these links in Confluence. And there is also a checkbox, for instance, in the form. If we have checked false, no links, then we just go in there. And if we want to have links, then it creates the web links in here. So there's another example file code. So that will be all in my shared process and will result in a project generation like this. The other thing is, and let me connect with UiPath once more. The other use case, just to recall, that's a little bit simpler, where Emma more or less gets a ticket ID from a stakeholders, and they want to understand about the progress about the project. So she would just enter the ticket ID, the robot collects the data and will display it to Emma. And that's this form made for. So you can type in a valid issue ID, for instance, and then if you click on that, the robot will be kicked off and it will process the input field here and will reach out to Jira, process everything, and then hopefully we'll expose it everything on the UI here. Here we go. So no need for Emma to go to Jira platform and find the item. So that's really something where we can give Emma the possibility to just enter the ID and get exactly what she needs in order to do her job efficient. Of course, as already mentioned, that process could collect data from the entire organization if needed. And in this case, it's just Jira. So that's this use case. And yeah, that's about my demo here. Did I miss anything? No, I think that should be fine. All right, so it's time for the second part of the quiz. By the way, if you have questions, paste them in the chat, or just try to remember we're gonna have this right after the quiz, the Q&A session. Right, so go back everyone to the menti.com and so just to show the board once more. Jando is still in the lead. So let's go for question number 3. Are you guys ready? So yeah, we have quite some people in there. Not too many dropped off. So question number 3. Again, the fastest answers gets more points. What type of automation UiPath does not offer? So that's a catchy question. Is it API automation? Is it UI automation? Is it product line automation? Or is it process automation? Very funny. So what do we not offer here at UiPath? Perfect. No one fell into my trap question. Fantastic. So question number 4. I hit the enter button. What is UiPath apps? Could be a little bit confusing. Is it a Microsoft Teams app? Is it a UiPath marketplace thing? Or is it a way to attach a web user interface on top of a process? Oh, that was not so clear. So maybe just to repeat that, the form I've showed you has been built with UiPath apps. And you can craft this app in our tool in UiPath apps, and then you can attach it to a process, meaning you can send a link then to this app where people get this web UI and they don't even know that's a UiPath robot behind it, but they just do their inputs, etc., and then they get their outputs. So that's built with UiPath apps. Pretty powerful and pretty nice thing. And if you haven't seen that, it's probably worth looking at this. Okay, so let's get to the final result. I hope you guys are all a little bit nervous. Okay, so we are going to the scoreboard. All right. And the winner is Chandu. Congratulations from the beginning to the end. So you want some swag, and Diana, please, or maybe you just paste your email
put your
address into the
email
chat.
in the chat box. That'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect. Congratulations, Chandu. That's fantastic. You were fast and answered everything right. So I hope you have some fun with the swag. All right, guys. So we reached Q&A. So I'm curious. Oops, I'm curious about your questions. So Diana, did we have any questions in the chat?
No questions in the chat, and I'm just going to unmute everybody.
So if you guys have questions, just feel free to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Sean.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to clarify something. These slides or video are available in the community area?
Yes, there will be a recording hosted, and Diana, correct me if I'm wrong. There will be the recording hosted in our community session section on our website, and there you will find also the slides plus the robot examples.
Right. So you'll get an email tomorrow with that information. Correct.
Okay, my next question is when you show this example of user stories, is it any particular methodology, like whether it's Scrum or Skill Agile framework or anything like that, or it just doesn't matter? It's kind of just user stories.
Whatever you can do in Jira, like if you prefer to work Scrum or I don't know, whatever you like, you should have all the capabilities to create these artifacts. So it does not matter what methodology you're using. You should be good with these capabilities we have to create all the stuff that you want. Right. So if you want to create not a user story but a task, then you should be able to do. You can do that. Does it make sense? So Sean, you're muted in case you're talking, but so well, just to close this, looks like you're not coming back, Sean. In case you didn't realize you're muted, but no matter what methodology you're using, no matter how you set it up, if you prefer to create projects, or if you prefer epics to do all that, that is all feasible. That's all possible. You can do that. All right. Thanks for these nice questions.
This is Flo here. Maybe I missed something. I was only able to see the last part of the demo. I saw that you were able to retrieve some information from Jira and then input it on like a web like UI. Is that like part of the integration built-in, or is it did you created that web interface yourself?
The web interface is something you build with the product we have. It's called UiPath Apps. Maybe I showed it, right? Let's just, let's go to UiPath Apps. So if you go into your automation platform, you will find a thing called apps. And this is the app I presented in my demo, but you can craft entirely new apps. Let me just click on that. You just go test pro, I test UI or whatever. And here you can craft whatever you want, right? So you can create controls and I don't know, text box. Honestly, I didn't do that very often, but you can just create a text box here. You can create buttons here. You can create whatever you hear. You assemble this, and then you can connect this to a process, meaning this will be the UI then, very much like the UI I showed you guys. And when you enter stuff here in this UI, for instance, you can then have a button which triggers the robot, and the robot goes, for instance, to Jira, collects data or from anywhere else, and can expose it in this web form again.
That's really helpful. Yep, it does. And then you can share this app with other stakeholders and other users, right?
Yeah, the same way as the CoE guys shared the link with me. Of course, I can share it with anyone, right?
Okay. And does that person have to have access to Automation Cloud to be able to access the app? So anybody, any random person, I can share that link.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me just hold on a second before I say something wrong. I need to clarify that. Maybe you need an account because I just saw that you're signing in staging UiPath.com, and I think you need to have access to Automation Cloud. But I can clarify that if you leave us our email address, your email
Yeah,
address.
I would love to know, because this will be really helpful. Something we're trying to clarify is that we want to gather these type of information for or from, external users that we may want to give them access to our automation cloud. So we'd love to know how we can go about that.
Yeah, and that's definitely something where you can expose some functionality via these UiPath apps to a user who is actually not supposed to really work with RP, but just consuming.
Right. But it's an external user. So I would love to know if we need to add that person to our automation cloud for them to access this link, or like, is there any separate way for them to access?
I think you will have to enable him by assigning him to the project, but you can give him minimal privileges that when he can't log in, he doesn't see anything, right? There's there is governments and stuff like there. But if you want to learn more, I could also connect you with our people who are doing this UiPath apps, or you find some content on our website about apps. But I think this is really what you're looking for.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the great question. Any other question? So,
hi, Robert. This is Naresh. I have one quick question on the UiPath apps and the UiPath assisted process, right? So, like the UiPath also provides the assisted process automation, like where the user and the automation works in parallel. In that case, there is a kind of UI, in my opinion. So is that UI is similar to UiPath apps, or it's a UiPath is altogether is a complete different functionality by UiPath?
well, this is, hold on, this is the assistant you're talking about, right? Let me just bring it up again. Right, this is the assistant you mean, right?
Yes, I mean, like in the so the unattended automation, attended automation. In case of attended automation, we have some UI, right? So that UI is not same as the UiPath apps.
No,
No.
we're talking about the fully automated enterprise, and one key thing is that we bring people the automations where they are. So we have different ways to do that. One thing, of course, with the assistant, other things, for instance, we're working on integrations, for instance, into Teams, that you can run automation directly from Teams, and UiPath apps is just another way where you can handcraft your own web UIs the way you want to have them, right? And enable a user to kick off a process, for instance, right? And maybe I can just show that like in Teams, because I did this as well. You can then take this link here, for instance, this app here. I can load more or less this app directly into Teams, into a tab view, right? And that's really nice for with these UiPath apps, because it's web-based and you can run these in Teams inside of an iframe, for instance. On the other side, we're also working on things like an native integration directly into Teams. And then we have the assistant. And then we have like apps, you can attach it anywhere, right? Wherever you have like browsing capabilities. So there is different ways to enable users to launch automations. That's what we're working on. And yeah, Teams is just one of it.
Okay. And in the functionality, can I compare the UiPath apps is similar to Microsoft Power Platform apps? In case if you know about a Power Platform.
Yeah, I know Power Platform, but I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know how that looks like in the Power Platform. I know the other tools like Flow and that stuff, but I don't really know what apps in Power Apps offers. I haven't seen anything like that so far. That's what I can say, but I cannot speak if this is same or different.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Thanks, Robert. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Very good questions. So anyone else? All right.
I have one question. When you create these apps, can you set up like a role-based access to those, or?
You mean for apps itself?
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if there is a role-based access, but what you can do is you can go in, I don't know, that's when you sign in with 3 different users, then it can happen that it signs you just out. But let me go to apps. What I can show you is, if I go to home, I'm logged in here with my user, and I have specific roles here, for instance. So like a Ratzvan, actually, yeah, I don't know why this is happening now. The guy in our CoE, he enabled me in our environment, in the staging environment, and let me show here. So he enabled me that I can use this Center of Excellence app and a couple others. So there is ways to assign people to these processes. I'm not sure if it's really possible to do it on a role. Maybe that's possible, but it's definitely possible to assign apps or assets, for instance, to different users. That's definitely what you can do.
Yeah, that helps. That helps. So my only reason is like you already have a role on the UiPath orchestrator, right? I'm just thinking whether that correlates with this role.
No, that has nothing to do with I
that.
could use apps and trigger and run a process without being enabled to use orchestrator.
Okay.
Right? I don't need, because when you run this process, it will take a robot user, it's an unattended, and it will have an unattended robot user there. It's not my user when I trigger it, right?
That's right. That's right. Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Good question. Lots of good questions. Are there some more questions? I'm a little bit surprised so many questions around apps, but obviously it was worth showing it because it creates a lot of interest, and it's a great product, by the way. So, all right, guys. No more questions. All right, Deanna, then let's wrap it up.
Sure.
So I have a last slide. You want to present it, or should I just?
You can present it.
Yeah. All right. As part of our integration series, this is right now happening, the Jira, and then we have a couple upcoming where you can boost customer experience with your UiPath and AWS in a contact center automation. And on 2nd December is about CRM systems with APIs. We are pushing a lot into this integration series here. And there is also another community event with SAP Solution Manager, which probably will do my friend and colleague Lev, I'm pretty sure. And as already mentioned, you will find all these things as recordings in our community session platform here, and you can register here in this meetups here. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. I hope it was somehow valuable for you guys. And you can join our community here, community.uipath.com. And you guys mean a lot to us. Without you, we wouldn't be so successful. So thanks a lot for that. And I wish you a pleasant day and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, and thank you, Robert, for presenting today. It was really great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.